Guys, 𝐼 daughter has come out and she has made some wild, and when I say wild, very, very wild allegations. Now, shortly before her coming out with this documentary, her mother, Andrea Kelly, who is the ex-wife of R. Kelly, released a statement on her social media that had people wondering, girl, what are you up to now? So I want to lay the foundation. Maybe 11 days ago or so, Andrea Kelly came out on her social media and she released a statement. And I want to get into that statement and exactly what Andrea Kelly had to say that had us wondering, girl, what are you up to now? Because, honey, we don't never know what Miss Andrea Kelly is up, what she posted on her social media. So she posted this on her social media, guys. I'm a beast and a butterfly. God said it is so. The time has come to disrupt the deception. For years, people have spoken on my life, knowing nothing about me. How crazy is it to speak on someone you never met or had a conversation with as fact? Well, the time has come to speak without fear. No more forcing smile to get through the pain of being me. No more be nice to please an unpleasant world. My book is going to set so many free. And if you have a problem with it, it's not me. Take it up with God. This is His, and it is so. So this is a statement that she released on her social media, y'all. And everybody like, girl, what are you up to, honey? And let's get into what is going on and the new, most recent allegations.
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
Now, once she released that statement, guys, so this statement was actually on her social media, but honey, she came out and released it a little audio with it as well. And let's just get into what the audio was actually giving us, because it looked to as if she was trying to tell us something without telling us. So let's get into that. It said, under the red carpet.
Fame costs. And right here is where you start paying for it in sweat. A famous quote from the hit show Fame by Debbie Allen. But I'd like to say, fame costs. And right here is where you start paying for it in blood, sweat, and tears. I did. Literally. Everybody wants to be on the red carpet, but nobody wants to know what's under the red carpet. On the red carpet is such a facade. It's the lights, cameras. Everybody knows your name. Opulence, diamonds, and the popping of champagne. But under the red carpet is pain, trauma, abuse, deceit, lies. And it might even cost you your life. It almost cost me mine. You want to be on the red carpet? Be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it.
Okay, guys. So that is the statement that she released on her social media with that video. And I'm sorry, but it is given very much clout for me. And she talks about, being on the red carpet and everybody knows your name, which is really false in her situation because we never even knew who she was until she came out. And I believe she was on Hollywood Exes. So people are saying, girl, you are giving very much thirst vibes. And why are you still digging up this same information from so many years ago? But it gets a little bit more interesting because it seems as if Andrea Kelly has dragged her daughter into it. And when I say she's dragged her daughter into it, that is exactly what I mean, because it seems like Andrea Kelly, which is R. Kelly's daughter, is making some very wild allegations. And I want to get into that. But first, before I get into that particular video, Andrea Kelly started promoting her book. And one of the interviews that she did was with the Black Star Report. And that was about 12 days ago. So let's kind of get into that video that she actually did with the Star Report. So give me a few seconds, guys. And this interview was with the Black Star Report, and this was about 12 days ago. Let me fast forward this because I'm not sure.
Don't play with me. Don't play with my kids. I'm not that little girl. I'm not that 19-year-old that walked into that audition. I'm a lioness and these are my cubs. Don't play with me.
Now with the children, how was he as a father?
Horrible.
Really?
I mean, I think that men in a position of power confuse being a provider with being a father. Because there's a mansion, because there's a nanny, because there's a driver. Those are things that you provide. Being a father means you need to be present. And at the end of the day, you're your own boss. So the excuse of I was in the studio or I'm traveling, I'm doing this, your children become before everything. Because at the end of the day, you never sell another album. Or if you're in prison, you're still somebody's father.
What is it like?
Okay, guys, I want to touch on that for just a second. And then I'm going to reshare it. This is where this becomes very confusing because her daughter in her new documentary is saying that R. Kelly actually SA'd her. Now, this is an interview that she did 12 days ago. She's not mentioning anything about that, but she says he's a horrible father. Now, put yourself in the mind of a mother and this has happened to your daughter. I don't care how bad you were as a father. You should have never put your hands on your child like that. But the fact that she's not speaking of this, but she's talking about him being a bad father, but she doesn't mention the violation, which they talk about 12 days later on the documentary, make this make sense. This not making a whole lot of sense. People is saying that this lady is a clout chaser. Something is not adding up. Kelly stuff. So let's get back into it, y'all.
With the children.
You turn 18. I was like, whatever you decide from this point, if you want to call him, you don't have to get permission. If you want to go visit him in jail, you don't have to get my permission. You're a young adult now. That is up to you. But I've always been that mother that I knew how to separate him not being a good husband and the relationship with him and his children as their father. Those are two separate things. So whatever my children feel, if you love them and want to see them, great. Yeah. If you hate them and never want to talk to them again, great. That is your decision, because I know what it's like to be his ex-wife, his wife. I can kind of separate myself from that. They share DNA. That's forever.
How did your parents feel about him?
And again, guys, she is not saying anything about this ninja violated my daughter, but she keeps talking about a relationship. If your ex-husband, or any man for that matter, has violated your daughter, why are we not hearing that? Like, what are you talking about, ma'am? Like, something about this is giving clout chasing and a bunch of lies. Let's continue.
I will tell you this. My dad is a retired naval officer, and he said the next time, if ever it comes to it, y'all will see me on the glass like this. So y'all figure that out for yourself. My dad was like, I better not ever run across that man on the street, ever. But the respect I have for my father, he's like, but because that is the father of my grandchildren, that is the only grace he gets. Only.
It's an interesting perspective considering what you've observed even growing up. Yeah. I think that, you know, a lot of times people take note of people in prison or people that the biggest gangsters, but we all have a soft spot.
Yeah.
And, you know, figuring out what that is. And a lot of times I've seen some tough guys, if their mamas, hey, we gonna come after your mama now, or your kids, your grandkids. So clearly that was a tender moment for your father.
Yeah. Because for him, it's like, okay, one blow, that was my daughter, but now it's the second, third, and fourth with my grandchildren.
Yeah.
So that just took my dad over the edge. He was like, yeah,
wow. Good. What was conversation like? Did you understand the cycle of abuse that he had been through growing up? Did y'all ever talk about that?
I did.
Really? Because from what I've read and researched and seen, it seems as if, I mean, he was abusing men, women, just whatever. Is that accurate?
But I think it stems from his childhood, being molested by a man and a woman.
So wow. So that's confirmed that he was molested by both men and women.
Men and women.
Wow.
Dealing with illiteracy.
So I'm just going to keep saying this over and over. I understand, you know, R. Kelly's background and what he had been through in terms of being violated by women and men. But this is, again, her opportunity. She not saying nothing about what allegedly happened to her daughter. I don't know about y'all, but people are saying that this is a bunch of bull crap and that they're making this up to actually, you know, sell her books and her daughter's documentary. Y'all got to let me know what y'all think, but let's continue. Let's continue.
a humbling sitting with him. And I remember going through a Dr. Seuss book. And he gets out of the bed and he goes in the hallway. And I'm like, what's like, he just transformed into this little boy right before my eyes. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, we're just reading stories to the kids. What's going on? And he shared with me, he said, Drea, I don't want to do that in front of them. And I said, but why? He was like, I can't read to them what's in that book. I don't want my kids to know I can't read. I said, but Robert, what you have to understand is they can't read either. You are magical in here. Make up the story as you go. I'll help you sound it out. And literally, I was teaching him to read through Dr. Seuss books. But I feel that it was a love-hate relationship because he would use that against me at times. He would also say, oh, you think you better than me because you can read. So I think he always had a love-hate relationship with me.
So you were seemingly living out The Color Purple.
It's very hard to watch that movie.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow.
But in the end,
yeah,
I'm gonna leave that right there.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to keep the last name?
Because I paid for this name in blood, sweat, and tears. Literally. Like after watching What's Love Got to Do with It?
Again, guys, now this man, R. Kelly, you guys are saying, or your daughter is saying, and you're her mother, so apparently she's saying she told you, why do you want to keep a man's last name that is not only considered a pedophile, but he violated his own kids? Like, don't you want to be so far away from that name and to be able to create your own identity and just put all of that bad, all of that behind you? Like, I would not want to be associated with anybody like that. You're saying that this man violated your daughter, but yet you're saying you paid for his name with blood, sweat, and tears. I wouldn't want the last name or anything that came with being associated with Robert Kelly. And this is why people are saying that this is a lie and nobody is really buying this story because of what they're saying and what she has actually said 12 days prior to this documentary being released. Make it make sense, ma'am. This is not adding up at all. So let's continue, guys.
For having the last name. But you would not be on my social media and care who I was if I didn't have the last name. So I just let people know real early.
That's another one. Now she says she's crucified for the last name, but people would not be thinking about her if it was not for the last name. Now, is it just me, or does that give clout? Why are you concerned with clout in whether or not people know who you are? For me, listen, you don't need to know who I am. I don't want to be tied to anybody that's considered a pedo. Like, I don't want to be tied to that person. So if I have to get clout that way, let me just start from scratch and I'll just create my own identity. The fact that she really seems like a clout chaser is partially the reason why people just don't believe this lady or anything she says. And definitely nobody wants to buy her book because it just seems like she is a massive clout chaser. And it seems like she'll do anything for cash, money. She wants money. And it seems like she'll do anything to actually obtain that.
2020 comes and follows me for a day. I've been on CNN. I've been on the platforms. I've been able to speak in Anguilla and on military bases talking about domestic violence awareness and sex trafficking awareness because of the last name. So let's not be concerned about why. We should be applauding what I'm doing with it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out here with last names and y'all are promoting complete bullshit in our community.
Yeah. So you go from falling in love with this man to one of the things I read is, you know, he hog-tied you.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this is, for me, mind-blowing. Anytime you hear anybody's story, any woman's story for me, but the way you told the story, it seemed as if he hog-tied you, you were on the side of the bed, and he went to sleep in the bed?
He fell asleep.
And how many hours were you tied up?
I don't even know. I just remember being like, all right, think. You are a dancer. You're flexible. What can you do? I know I can get my feet as close to my head as possible. Like literally, it felt like a scene out of the movies where they kidnap somebody and throw them in the back of the van. And then they cut to the scene where the person just been there for hours. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, so either I'm going to figure out.
Ma'am, you say that this man hog-tied you, but yet you still want to be associated with him through his last name. Now, is it just me, or is this given that I am such a freaking clout chaser that I don't care what he did, as long as I can, you know, manage to get some kind of money by being associated with him? If he hog-tied you, violated your name, ma'am, this doesn't make any sense at all.
I'm getting out of this. It was crazy. Like if there was social media back then, that would have been a mess. Like literally me escaping, running out the house, running down the street, in the park, hopping the fence, and he's chasing me.
So wait a minute. After he wakes up?
Yeah. So our bedroom had an automatic lock on it. And that's another thing that people are like, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you just do this? Why don't you just do that? And I'm like, you have no idea the fortress I lived in. Okay. That's number one. So the door had an automatic lock, and it was like one of them magnetic locks. So when you lock the door, in order to get out, you have to push a button, and it makes this click noise that makes a bell go off. So I'm like, even when I get out of this, I gotta push that damn button. And that, oh, okay. How do you? So I had to be lightning quick, like push it, open the door, click. That's what woke him up.
So you woke him up because you eventually got
running.
out.
Yes, running down the stairs. So I'm like, shit, I got to get down all these stairs to the front door. I'm like, there's no time to grab a purse. There's no time to grab shoes. There's no time to do anything. I got about 10 seconds to get from that third floor down to the first floor to get to the door and out the door. I was like, okay, here we go. And me and him running down the damn street looking stupid.
Let me just stop this one. All right, y'all. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of Andrea Kelly's story. But what I can tell you is I did look back because I wanted to know, you know, what was she saying prior to this? But one of the things that she did, her and her daughter did a story with Good Morning Britain. And I want to kind of get into that because, again, you know, today what is being said is that the daughter was violated by R. Kelly, but yet, what is it like? Her and her daughter spoke on Good Morning Britain, and they, again, none of this stuff was brought up with regards to what they are saying now. So it just makes people wonder what is really going on. So let's get into that. Let's jump into it.
scandal, no other way to put it. For you two, this must be pretty unbearable. You know, you are so closely aligned as a family to R. Kelly. How are you dealing with all this furore that's been erupting?
As best as possible, you know. I don't think that people have a clear understanding that we're dealing with two people here. There's R. Kelly, the persona, and then there's Robert, the person. Myself and my daughter, we're connected to Robert, the person.
Is it? How would you describe Robert, the person?
Well, Robert, the person, he was funny. He had the best mama jokes ever. We started out as friends, and it evolved into a relationship. Being abused as a child, dealing with illiteracy. Domestic violence was commonplace in his home. And the thing that was the first time I ever saw a man put his hands on a woman, he was abusive to my grandmother. So fast forward, Robert and I are in an abusive. What I grew up in, it's what he grew up in. There's this persona who portrays this confident, in control man, which is total opposite of what he is.
How do you feel, though, about the sheer magnitude of allegations, particularly involving very young girls in some cases, which have now bedeviled him? I know he's not been convicted of any criminal offense as yet, although it would appear that that may be coming sooner rather than later in terms of at least criminal charges. But how do you portray him in a very sympathetic light there, almost willing us to feel sorry for him in a way for the abuse he suffered or whatever.
Yeah.
But he seems to have perpetrated, I mean, there's so many allegations now. He seems to have perpetrated so much misery onto so many young women and young girls. How do you feel about that? And can you defend any of that?
Well, first, I'd like to say there's a difference between portraying sympathy, which I do not portray. I portray understanding because I know him in such a way because I was married to him. I'm a firm believer that just because you grew up in a household where abuse was prevalent and you were abused, it does not give you a free pass to be an abuser. So I want to make that very clear. It's devastating and it's hard because I wear two hats. I sit here as not only a survivor, but also the mother of his children. So it's very difficult for me, but I also know my position. And I know that coming forward brings validity to these young women and young girls' stories. And being a mother, I could not say anything after 10 years of my life going by and thinking I've made it out of the storm. And then here come more allegations and they ring true to my life. And me and these women, we don't know each other. So how could we have the same stories about the same man and not know each other? So again, my story is coming from that of understanding because I know his background, but it also comes from standing as a survivor and an advocate.
And let me just ask you directly, do you believe all these women who've come forward? Do you believe that he is a serial abuser of women?
I believe that he is abusive. I can't confirm or deny these women's stories because, again, I have not lived it personally. All I can say is what rings true to my life. Every experience is different. I wasn't there when it happened to some of these women, but what I can say, what rings true to my life is what I can speak on. I don't know the other women's background, so I don't know if they grew up in a household where domestic violence and abuse was commonplace as to why they may have ended up or stayed as long as they did, or, you know, I just can't speak to that. I can only speak to my truth, and my truth is what I survived. He was abusive to me, verbally, emotionally, physically, sexually, and as we stand today, he's financially abusing me. He stopped paying child support when I came forward in June of 2018. So, you know, I can only speak to my story and what rings true to what I hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I feel that something has to be done.
Well, you're extremely eloquent, and it must be incredibly difficult for you. Let me bring in your daughter, Joann. Joann, ultimately, this is your dad. I know you haven't seen him for quite a while, but this is your father that we're all talking about in a very unpleasant manner. How do you feel about this, about your father, and about what's been going on?
Well, particularly about the situation that is happening in the blogs and, you know, everything, all the allegations that are going around. It's very hard to digest because, as a lot of people know, in the posts that I posted, as far as my reaction to everything that's happening, that's still my father. It's a very hard situation to digest and even process because my heart is torn into two separate places. As my mother said, I don't want to confirm or deny anything that the women have been saying about my father, or any of the rumors that have been going around throughout the years about my father. But as I said, I know him. He's my father. I grew up in that house to a certain extent. So I spent years in that house. And so it's very painful to see that all of these people are now being affected and have been affected by somebody who I do care about and have a very strenuous relationship with and is so close to me. So
Well,
it's very rough.
Joann, you say that, I mean, do you still love your dad? Do you feel like you have to defend him? I know that you were reported as calling him a monster, but which you deny. Are you conflicted about your feelings about him? As a young woman, I think you're 21 years old now. A number of these allegations concern young teenage women. You would have grown up through those years hearing those allegations. What do you think of your dad right now?
Right now, I mean, like I said, I'm very torn because at the end of the day, it's still family. He's still my blood. So yes, I do still love my father, and that is something that I want people to understand. I never came out and said what I said to make people feel like I hate him or I'm bashing him, because that's not it. But you have to, at the end of the day, be responsible for your actions. And I had to do what was best for me, and my family had to do what was best for them. And if my father is a toxic person, then unfortunately we just have to love him from a distance. There's no love lost, but I just had to separate myself.
Does he try and contact you?
No.
When did you last see him?
Honestly, it's been a few years since I've seen or spoken to him. I don't know exactly how long, but it's been a while.
Well, listen, we really appreciate you both joining us. This must be agony to talk about, and it's your family. You know, it's your ex-husband, it's your father. It's very, very difficult territory, this, obviously. I think you've spoken with great eloquence and grace today, and we greatly appreciate you taking the trouble to do that. And let's just hope that in the end, I guess, that justice is seen to be done wherever justice lies with this, because there are so many allegations. The film, I watched it, it's so devastating. You know, it's hard to believe that all these women are making it up, frankly. But I believe in due process. I believe that due process should apply to everyone, including R. Kelly, and let's just wait and see what happens and see where justice takes us. But thank you both very much indeed for joining us.
Now, guys, that particular interview was about 5 years ago. Again, there has been nothing stated with regards to what they are saying R. Kelly did to his daughter. And of course, now the trailer has been released with regards to this new documentary that came out on October 11th, roughly, about 2 days ago. So about 2 days ago. I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to watch it. It's actually on that I've not ever heard of. But if you guys check that out, or if you saw that, please let me know in the chat. But what they are stating is the last 5 minutes is when the information was released. So his daughter.
He wants to be the child of the father that is out here hurting women and children.
Everywhere we go, everything we do, it's always gonna have some type of like double meaning under it, or someone's gonna read between lines that aren't there.
He knows exactly why we can't have the relationship that we would have liked to have with him.
Just because you're not a good husband doesn't mean you can't be a good father. And the fact that he didn't even try. What he did to me, he did to me. But you didn't have to do it to my damn kids.
What he has done to those kids, there is no other word for him. He's a monster.
I know that there were so many things going on. Everything. For a long time, I didn't even want to believe that it happened. I didn't know that even if he was a bad person, that he would do something to me. I really feel like that 1 millisecond completely just changed my whole life. If my son asks questions, I'm going to be as truthful as possible. But I will not be taking my son to a prison to meet his grandfather.
Okay, guys, make of that. But the daughter is making those allegations with regards to R. Kelly. And R. Kelly has stated before and in the past is, he feels as if the daughter is being brainwashed to not like him. Now, why would the daughter make these allegations if they were not true? Honestly, I can't tell you. I don't know, what would actually go through the mind of a person to even think that that has happened. But what you're going to learn from my next video is R. Kelly's lawyer is coming out and saying, hey, there has been documented information where these allegations were already investigated and they were unfounded. She also mentions information with regards to false allegations and the daughter seemingly being brainwashed by the mom to actually say that this actually occurred. Now, hey, I don't know, but this is what his lawyer is saying. And his lawyer is speaking out, and she is not very happy with what is being stated by R. Kelly's daughter with regards to these allegations.
denies the allegations. These are frankly not really new allegations. His ex-wife made a similar allegation, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago. The allegation was investigated by the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. He was under criminal investigation at the time. He's probably the most highly investigated individual on the planet when it comes to these types of claims. And family allegation was unfounded. Many know the circumstances, but he certainly denies it, and it's our position that if there was any merit to the claims, charges would have been brought to accuse him in the many prosecutions they indicted.
I want to give the benefit of the doubt to her as well, but when you look at the clip in that documentary, she's in tears. She's acting.
It's not only incredible data around false allegations, my own person, and we know that sometimes people come to believe things based on having distorted and contaminated memories, particularly children, and this can be done by their mothers. I mean, this is not junk science. This stuff exists. I don't know what her motivation is. I don't know what's going through her brain. What I can tell you is, and you know, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office back in 2019 literally set up a hotline after the Surviving R. Kelly series came out, and anybody could call with an allegation against Mr. Kelly and have their allegation investigated. And what we learned is that people did not always tell the truth when they called. Not every allegation had merit. And so just because someone says it's true and people cry does not necessarily mean it has merit.
Okay.
Again, I'm not making specific, you know, I don't know what her motivations are, but just because someone cries, I don't can assume they're telling the truth or that they remember accurately.
And I think it's a fair statement. I do want to ask you this, though. It is a very damning statement against a father, and I can only imagine if he's innocent of this, he would be not only devastated but angry. Is there any plan to file a defamation case against her on the part of your client?
He is very upset. He's angry, but of course he loves his children. I mean, you know, we haven't decided what legal action we would take in response to this, but it's not really a conversation. He's mourning right now. And again, he is someone who has been investigated over and over and over again. And we have to pause and wonder, you know, it's not as if, again, this is really a new allegation. And if there was merit to it, why wasn't he prosecuted for it?
Is it on the table? Is a defamation case on the table? Is it something you're discussing with R. Kelly?
I just answered that question. And what I said is I have not spoken to him about what response we will have. So I don't know what you mean by on the table. I don't take actions without speaking to my clients. So I can't answer that question.
That was my question. No, that was my question. Have you spoken with him about that? Because you said you haven't decided on a course of action, and that's why I said, have you spoken to him about this? Is it possible?
We haven't spoken about the legal consequences of the allegation.
Okay, it makes sense. Well, let's catch up again on this when you've had a chance to speak with your client. I'd like to know if you're able to share with Jennifer.
So guys, that was R. Kelly's attorney, and what the attorney is pretty much saying is these allegations are false. And if you were paying attention, she stated that these allegations were already previously investigated. She also stated that there has been, I guess, past, information where, another parent can pretty much brainwashed their child into thinking something happened that actually didn't. Now, if you guys are familiar with anything, that happened with R. Kelly, the lawyer said they set up a hotline, which is very given Diddy, because if you guys know, that is exactly what they're doing to Diddy. But she said they set up a hotline where anybody could call in. Obviously, she's saying people called in with false lies, but she said they investigated. And another thing she said, the Department of Children and Family Services was involved. Now, if you guys, if you know about the Children and Family Services, they are supposed to do an in-depth investigation. And she also stated, like, look, if this was true, don't you know that the investigators would have jumped for joy at the fact that they can actually put his own daughter on the stand to talk about what he did to her? So I don't know, y'all. This story is, like I said, is given lies. People are not, actually believing this story because people are thinking that R. Kelly's ex-wife is in fact the clout chaser, and people are just not believing this at all. And I mean, in all honesty, you want to give people the opportunity to be able to tell their story, but unfortunately, this is why there's stories that people don't believe, because let's just be truthful here. Since we're talking about it, everybody is not honest, even as we talk about the Diddy story. Now, we know everybody that's saying that something happened to them, everybody is not being honest now, which is a problem because we know that there more likely there's victims. But then you're going to get the clout chasing people who want to just jump in there and say, hey, he did it to me as well. So Andrea is looking very much like a clout chaser, and even R. Kelly's own lawyer is saying that the information is just not adding up. It was previously investigated and it was unfounded. So if the Department of Children and Family Services, if they already investigated this and it was unfounded, guess what, guys? It's unfounded. So there is nothing that's going to happen to R. Kelly with regards to this. What they stated is that nothing was done because of the statute of limitations, which is, again, according to R. Kelly's lawyer, it's another lie, y'all. So y'all gotta let me know what y'all think.